Hey friends, imagine you're scrolling through a ton of guitars, picture a bright red one catching your eye, and you're thinking, does this really belong in my collection, or am I just falling for the color? I've been in that spot more than once, standing in a music store, hearing the same glossy promise from every salesperson, and wondering if the price tag you see online actually matches what you'll get in your hands. If you're on the fence about a vintage-style Strat, the Fender American Vintage II 1961 Stratocaster in Fiesta Red might feel like a big decision, especially when you've got a budget and you don't want to end up with a guitar that sounds great in a demo but falls flat in a gig. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's break down why this particular model could be the right fit for you, and where it might miss the mark. First, the vibe. This isn't a modern, super sleek Strat with a flat black finish. It's a nod to the early 60s, painted in that iconic Fiesta red that vintage collectors love. The color alone gives it a stage presence that can turn heads before you even hit the first note. If you're the kind of player who likes to make a visual statement, that's a win. On the flip side, if you're after a low-key, black or sunburst surface that blends into any band setup, the high-gloss red might actually be a distraction. Now, about the wood and neck. The body is Alder, the classic Fender choice that's been used for decades because it offers a balanced tone-tight lows, clear mids, and a nice snap on the highs. In practical terms, that means you'll get a decent response whether you're playing rhythm blues chords or a bright lead line. The maple neck is a standard for Strats, giving you a smooth feel under your hand, and the Rosewood fingerboard adds a subtle warmth that many players appreciate when they're doing a lot of bends. If you've ever complained that your neck feels too chunky or the fretboard feels too slick, this combination tends to sit comfortably for most hand sizes, though really thin fingers might still want a narrower nut, which isn't something you can change on a factory model. The 3 single-coil pickups are where the 1961 vibe really shines. Those pickups have that vintage sparkle, especially when you roll the tone knob to 7 or 8. In a live setting, they cut through the mix without sounding harsh, and in a bedroom jam they provide that classic spanky character you hear on early Jimmy and Stevie Ray recordings. However, single coils are also famously prone to hum, especially under stage lights or fluorescent bulbs. If you're gigging in venues with a lot of electronic interference, you'll likely want a noise gate or a hum-canceling pedal. It's not a flaw of the guitar itself, just a trade-off that comes with the true vintage pickup design. One practical strength that shows up when you start playing the guitar day-to-day is the bridge and tremolo system. The American Vintage II inherits the vintage-style synchronized tremolo that feels like a throwback but is also fairly reliable. It stays in tune reasonably well when you dive into subtle vibrato, but if you're the type who does extreme dive bombs or aggressive whammy bar tricks, you might notice some tuning drift after a few minutes. That's a common reality with vintage-style hardware, great for classic surf rock swoops, less ideal for modern metal or metalcore tricks. So, if your style leans toward the former, you'll be happy. If you need a locking tremolo for drop-tune shredding, you might look elsewhere. What about setup and playability straight out of the box? Fender's American-made guitars usually ship with a decent factory setup, meaning you can plug in, tune up, and start feeling comfortable within minutes. That said, you'll probably want a quick professional setup after a few weeks of playing just to fine-tune the action and intonation. The good news is that any standard Fender tech can handle this, and the adjustable bridge makes those tweaks straightforward. If you're a DIY player, the simplicity of the hardware means you won't need specialized tools, which keeps the total cost lower. Let's talk dollars and cents. The American Vintage II sits in the mid to high range for entry-level professional guitars. You're paying for the heritage name, the vintage aesthetic, and the fact that this is an American-made instrument, not an overseas copy. For many buyers, the real value comes from the feeling of owning a piece of Fender history, not just the specs on paper. If you're a collector or a gigging musician who wants a reliable, authentic-sounding Strat that can handle a variety of genres, the price makes sense. Conversely, if you're a beginner on a tight budget, a more affordable Player Series Strat might deliver the same playability without the premium that comes from the American label. You'll still get an Alder body and the same pickup layout, just with a different finish and perhaps a slightly different neck profile. Who should definitely consider this guitar?